I'm going to hit overheads today. Before I start, a few things I want to go over. Number one, hitting these overheads can be hard on your shoulder. You could injure your shoulder if you try and do too many in a row. I suggest trying to throw in some overheads, some high balls while you're doing other drills. So if you're dinking back and forth or you're doing some firefighting, give your drilling partner 5 or 10 of these high balls, and they will give you 5 or 10 of these high balls, and then go back to dinking or firefighting. And then a little bit later on, give them more high balls, they'll give you high balls, and so forth. Don't try and hit a ton of these in a row. Your shoulder's not going to like you if you do. Number two, before you start hitting these overheads, practice catching the ball with this non-paddle hand. So it would be in this ready position, my ball machine or my drilling partner would hit me a high ball, I would drop this side of my body back, put this hand up on this 45-degree angle, and actually catch this ball. And if I have to move, then that's good practice too. I want to move and stop where that ball would hit my hand, where it is on this angle. If I can do that, my overheads are going to be better. I have a separate video where I talk about how to do this. Go watch that video. I'll put a link in the description box below. But basically, we want to be good at visualizing catching this ball into our non-paddle hand. Ready position, ball comes up, we've got to move, and then we want that ball to hit the palm of our hand. If that ball will hit the palm of my hand, my body's in the right position for me to hit that ball well across that net. We want our shoulder to be warm and loose. I stretch mine beforehand if I know I'm going to hit very many of these overheads. So I'll get up against a wall, put my arm up against the wall, and press my armpit into the wall. And that will stretch all of this out a little bit, get it warm. And then also take it, put my arm against the wall this way and press my shoulder into the wall to get the muscles and the tendons loose in this joint before I hit too many of these overheads. Another way to practice these overheads is a video I did where I have a 3-in-1 drill, which is if I'm using my ball machine, it's feeding me one ball and I'm hitting 3 different shots off of that one ball. So the first shot is either a return to serve or a third shot. So I'll hit 5 of those. I'll slide forward and hit 5 lobs off of the same ball coming out of that machine. And then I'll slide further forward and hit 5 overheads, and then I'll rotate back to the beginning. And if I have a drilling partner, they can slide in and do the next 5, 5, and 5. And by the time they're done, I'm ready to start my rotation of those 5, 5, and 5. Really good video. I'll put a link to that in the description box below. Feel free to go watch. Let me talk about targeting a little bit. In general, my philosophy is whoever is the closer player, that's where I want to hit this overhead at. So if I have one person up and one person back, in most cases, I want to go at the closer person. Why? Because it takes away a ton of time that they have to react. So the ball's coming at them quicker, they have less time to react, and in general, that's my advantage. Now, there are always exceptions to that. Sometimes I can't get around and can't get rotated enough to where it's easy for me to hit that ball at the closer person. And in those cases, I want to go with the person who's further back. It can be tempting if one of my opponents is up and one person's back is to see this big open space in front of the person that's back and want to just default to hit into that open space. I think that's a bad temptation because what I see happen a lot is people will put this ball halfway deep, so bouncing their overhead into no man's land, and it just bounces up and provides the person back on the baseline an easier shot to hit. So try to stay away from the mindset of, I see this big open area and I'm going to hit my overhead into that open area. I either want to go at the feet or the knees of somebody that's close to me if they're up on the kitchen line, or I want to go all the way back to that baseline. I don't want to hit that ball short, and I talked in a previous video about how to control the depth of how we're hitting these overheads. So just because you see this big open area in front of somebody who is back on the baseline and their partner is up on the kitchen line, try and avoid that big open area. I either want to go at the knees of the person close to me, or I want to go and hit this ball so it bounces all the way back on that baseline. Targeting situation number 2 then was when both of my opponents are deep, both of them are on the baseline. I, in general, want to go between the 2 of them because it can cause some confusion about who's going to get this ball. Now, if I feel like I have a good enough targeting and I get just the right ball and I want to go off on this acute angle either way, I can do that. I just have to realize that court is shorter. If I'm going off on this acute angle, I have less room to work with. Yes, it may be harder for them to run down, but my chances of hitting the ball out are higher. So I may not want to do that. So I primarily want to go all the way deep between the two opponents, or if I feel good enough, go deep to either one of those corners. One thing you don't want to do is, if I have both of my opponents back and I get this high ball, is take it and try and just dink it over the net. Bad things happen. First, this ball is up so high that as it goes across that net, it's going to bounce up high, giving them more time to come into the net. You've just given away your advantage of having them deep and pulled them into the net. The other one is, if I'm going to dink this from this height, it's going to go so slow that, again, they have more time to get up to the kitchen line. I rarely see this work when I see people try to do this. Please don't do this. If you get this high ball, go ahead and power this ball deep between them, or minimally hit it hard enough to keep them back. Don't pull them in trying to be cute with this little dink from this high ball. Another targeting consideration is when you have one of your opponents in no man's land. Doesn't matter where their partner is. Their partner could be up on the kitchen line or all the way back. If I have somebody in no man's land and their feet are exposed, I get this high ball, that's the first place I'm going. That's probably the easiest overhead to hit and target somebody's feet. And when I say feet, I'm generally talking knees and below. I think that's kind of fair game. It doesn't have to always be down at their feet. So if you have somebody, one of your opponents, hanging out of no man's land for whatever reason, you get this high ball, that's where your overhead should be going. Final targeting scenario, then I have both of my opponents up on the kitchen line and I get a high ball. In general, I just want to go at the person who's easier for me to hit this ball at. So between the two of them, one is going to be a little bit harder for me to hit the overhead at them versus the other one. I care less about which of the opponents is better. If I can hit this ball really hard, it's not coming back on average. And so I want to make life easier on myself. If I get the right ball and it's easier to hit this overhead at the person across from me, I'm going to do that. If it's easier for me to go cross court and hit the ball, I'm going to do that. Now, if they're both up on the kitchen line, try not to make this too accurate. Try not to just go at their feet. I'm aiming more at their knees. So knees down, I think, is fair game if I'm going to hit this overhead. So this ball's up high. If I try and go too short at their feet, I may be too early and dump this in the net. I don't want to do that. Instead of targeting their feet, maybe I'm looking at their knees more if I get a little bit of a lower high ball, just to make life easier on myself and get this ball over the net. I'm going to go hit some overheads now. All right, for this first example, I have one of my opponents up close on the kitchen line and their partner's all the way back on the baseline. I'm going to ignore this huge amount of space in front of the person that's further back. I want to go at the person that's closer at me. I'm going to try and aim for their knees or below. My ball machine is kind of at mid-court, so if it was further back, I might have more time to drop all the way back like this. So if some of these I don't, it's probably because the ball's coming a little bit quicker than I wanted it to, and I might otherwise have a slower ball. So here we go. So just trying to aim, trying to get my left hand up. I'm stepping forward a little bit. I could be dropping this foot back. Just making sure I'm not stepping in the kitchen here. Pretty good. Left hand's up, trying to get down at the feet of my opponent across the net. If I can hit this well enough, this ball's not coming back. Next thing I'm going to practice is when my opponent's in no man's land, their feet are exposed. This may be the easier one to hit. It's a little bit further away, but their feet are more visible. If they're up on this kitchen line and I get a ball that's a little bit back off of this net, or the ball's a little bit lower, it can be difficult to hit that ball right down at their feet. If they're further back in no man's land, their feet are more exposed. In my opinion, I'm going to go with my opponent that's back in no man's land. So I'm squared up to the ball. Just trying to put this down at their feet. If I hit this well, it should not come back. So my mentality should be, if I can hit this well, this point is over. Oh, that was a little bit high around the knee. So my timing, the earlier I am, the shorter that ball is, the later it is. The later it is, the deeper it goes. Last scenario, both of my opponents are back. I'm going to try and put this ball deep. Again, it's all about timing. The later I am getting my paddle to this ideal contact point, the further this ball is going to go. The deeper this ball is going to go, eventually it will go out of bounds. So this is a little bit tougher of a shot, but if I ever have a high ball and I have both of my opponents back, I want to keep them back. I want to do as good a job as I can of still hitting this ball hard, making life difficult on them to return this ball back. If I want to go to the corner, I can do that if I feel confident that is what I want to do. I don't want to hit on some crazy acute angle and have this ball go out of bounds and give up this advantage I have of my two opponents back. I got a high ball and I just blew it because I hit this ball on an acute angle that went out of bounds. Here we go. So the longer I wait, the deeper this ball goes. Still too short. That was better. That was better. Just gotta wait longer. It's all about my timing. That was too late, so it went out of bounds. That was pretty good. That was pretty good. That was pretty good. Nice and deep between the two. It's all about timing. That was right back on the baseline. That's all I'm going to hit this morning. I hit more than what you saw in video, but my shoulder and my arm are already telling me that's enough for the day, and I don't want to overdo this. So again, a good way to work this in is during your normal drilling practice, you're dinking or firefighting or working on your hand speed, throw up some high balls for your drilling partner and have them do the same for you, and then go back to dinking. Give your shoulder some time to rest and recover, get rid of some of that lactic acid. As you can maybe tell, I was hitting those balls fairly hard, about as hard as I can hit them, because I don't want that ball to come back. I want this point to be over. The harder I hit it, the more likely that's going to happen. So the downside is it really wears and tears on the body, on the shoulder, if you do too many of these. Try and work these into your normal practice and just get a few here and a few there and a few there, and you'll get better over time. I hope you found this masterclass helpful. As always, thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so. I would appreciate it. Thank you.